Okay, Chad. So curious when it comes to doing some basic auditing of the financials. It sounds like something that kind of like your guys' data engineer and your data scientist, like they've perfected their craft. How can a buyer, in the due diligence process, like what are some like just basic questions they might have just to understand the integrity of the data that they're looking at? Can you think of just some simple or random questions that a buyer could ask to understand that, or even a seller to understand, is what I'm seeing like
Yeah.
actually real?
Yeah. I mean, uh, I guess that is such a good question. What comes to mind immediately is like, if I was buying a company, I would ask the question, what's your single source of truth? And I would start there because if the answer to that question is not simple, if you might want to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's bad, just means that you might have to dig a little bit deeper. So what I mean by single source of truth is, if you ask me that question and I answer and I say, yeah, I have a SQL database that we connect Looker to, and that SQL database is a mirror image of the e-commerce database, then I know that that is my single source of truth, that there is no other data that is being pulled in or
Mhm.
manipulated. But if you start saying something like, I've got Looker connected to a SQL database, and that SQL database is fed by 5 different databases, that might not be bad, but there's questions there that you're going to want to drill into to really understand the integrity of that data. Like, with having a team like what we have, I know that the data, the integrity of the data is there, because that's that's their job, that they live and breathe it. But when you start talking about 5 or multiple sources feeding into a database, like those different feeders to the data, like, do they take the data as seriously as what the next person does? So you just got to, that's where I would start, Nate. I would really want to understand the integrity and where it's being sourced from.
A lot of a lot of people in the acquisition process, they're very eager and sensitive to review the integrity of the financial data,
Right.
specifically what's going to the bank account, what shows up in the financials, the profit and loss statement, and the income, or in the balance sheet, are the and integrity of those is critical to the transaction being able to be consummated. And I don't know how many people understand that there's a lot of hands, or there's a lot of touch points in the e-com ecosystem before that money gets to the bank account.
Yeah.
There's the issuing credit card on the consumer side. There's the acquiring credit card on the merchant side. There's a payment gateway. There's a shopping cart, graphical user interface, somewhere in there that's putting, moving things to payment gateways, and then there's the depository, batches made to the bank account. Um, maybe you can share your thoughts about that, the complexity of that, and dissecting that a little bit, or I'm just kind of curious if you've got any words of wisdom as you've managed or dealt with that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I again, I'm looking at this from trying to keep it high level,
Hmm.
and I wouldn't, like, if I was buying a company, I wouldn't worry about all those components that you mentioned so much as from a data perspective. What I would be concerned about is knowing that the data that I'm looking at is accurate, and those the components that feed up to that data, or that single data source. I would just want to know that a level of confidence in the accuracy of that data. So I don't know that I would get too worried about the nuances of how it works A to Z, because you'll pull your hair out.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you there. We don't want to go down a rabbit hole. That's not going to be helpful. Why don't we switch topics for a second? Talk about integrations. I know that your system and the sticky system is a significant amount of integrations. On the payment side, on the fulfillment side. What about? Obviously, it's a huge benefit for your merchants. But tell us a little bit about, what's the effort that goes into that? What's the integrity of making sure those integrations are tight, making sure they're accurate, what you can share a little bit about that. And this, I think, maybe can give other people some ideas as to what they should be on the lookout for. To what level does an enterprise system like Sticky do compared to the variety of systems that are out there that they've got to contend with?
Yeah, and again, this is something that if you've been in this space long enough, you've dealt with the challenge of keeping up with integrations. And I think the simplest way I can explain it to someone is like things change, to say daily. That's true, but from a technology perspective, things that really like earth-shattering technologies that you need to integrate, you're probably every quarter you're seeing new things that you need to try. Not everything that you try is going to be totally successful, obviously, but you need to try and keep trying and trying these different technologies. And that, from a SaaS perspective, like a SaaS company, that's what they have to do. They have to keep up on that stuff. And I've built companies, Nate, where I've used SaaS, and I've homegrown things too. And home growing there's some definite advantages to that, but one of the key disadvantages that would make me not want to do that ever again is this piece right here in integrations, because you just can't keep up. As a marketer, you want to have the latest and greatest widget, that you're using to make money on your site. So I just think that the days of self-building all these integrations they're over. Like, it's really too hard to keep up. It's too expensive to keep up. And to speak to just what it takes to make sure that our integrations are sound, there's a bunch of QA that goes on once we get the development done. But even before that, there's lots of vetting that goes on. Is this really something that is it a feature? This integration, is it a feature that people need long term? Okay, is it a feature that is reliable? Is it ethical? There's a lot that goes into really even before we make the decision to do the integration.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a critical piece. That's part of why I sold Offer Profit. I didn't want to keep doing new integrations. I didn't want to keep doing new upgrades to it. I had kind of built the beast, and then it either needed to be let out of the cage or it needed to transfer to a bigger cage that someone else could control. And I did not want to go through all that part of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's switch topics over to the tech stack specifically. And talking a little bit about like the benefits of SaaS versus custom CRM. We had just kind of touched on that a second ago. Maybe you can shed some more light into this is definitely helpful for somebody who's buying a business. I think also helpful for someone who's building a business and they have a custom solution. When does it make sense maybe to switch over to something enterprise level? Let's talk a little bit about like the solutions that SaaS, offers.
Yeah.
That's out there, like what you guys offer, and kind of where that stage is in, to consideration for an e-commerce founder when they're ready to upgrade to something like Sticky.
Yeah, and each person has, they have their own situation, and they have to make the best decision for themselves. And I'm not knocking custom built applications, but to answer your question, I mean, I spoke about the flexibility of SaaS, and just the convenience of having all these pre-built integrations. There's certainly an advantage to that. But also, the types of people that we employ, we employ people that are absolute experts in their field of study. And we have a bunch of people who are experts in billing. To hire that expertise is very expensive. To replicate what a SaaS company does is pretty expensive. I always laugh, and I don't know if you've ever heard somebody say, an email service provider, ESP, we should just build our own ESP. It just makes me laugh, because there's so much that goes into building an ESP, that, like, whitelisting, and what do you do when you can't get through to certain ISPs, all that stuff that goes into an ESP. Why would you homegrown that? It's the same kind of conversation when it comes to recurring billing, and the system that we have. There's just no way you can catch up to where we've been over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And that's really what as a business owner, what you're getting.
I absolutely agree. I would not want to be in the tech business for e-commerce with all the amount of stuff that's going on and new things and widgets, as you described.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about the technology, but there's also compliance components too that are, they're heavy lifts at times to be compliant.
One of the things that I had problems with, anything that I had built and any custom solutions is, when stuff broke, it took me forever to fix things. And I know you guys have a specific service level agreement, what they call an SLA. Maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah.
And how important it is to be up all the time. I can certainly share some stories about that.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing them, because I just recently did the math on the difference between 99.0 and 99.999, and then I did all the iterations, 99.9 versus 99.999, because people throw these percentages around, and I really just wanted to know what the difference is. That's my analytics background. I'm very curious. So, the difference between 99% uptime and 99.999% uptime, which is what we have on our AWS backbone, is, it's over 3.5 days. It's about 4 days of downtime. So you can't just throw around those terms and not really understand what you're getting. Like, if you look at 99%, or one of our key competitors advertised at one time 99 or 98.5%. Come on, you've got, as an e-commerce company today, the consumers expect you to be up, and so at 99.99%, you're down 5.3 minutes a year.
That's awesome.
So that level of expectation is what, if I was buying a company and I saw that my SLA was 99%, I would dig deeper into that. I would really want to understand, because downtime is expensive.
Yeah, it is.
And it's really easy to calculate.
All of your media costs for all of your downtime, plus, that's
the media cost, Nate, right? And you've lived this. Like, when you go down, the media cost is heavy, but what's heavier is earning the trust back from your traffic partners to run your offer again, to run your product again. Because if you go down on me, Nate, a couple times in a month, and I have media spend out there, supporting your product, I'm probably not gonna I'm not going to trust you very long if you keep going down. And that's the hard part as about being a marketer in this space, is that you really have you have to consider all these factors going on, like your SLA, like your reporting. You've got to you really got to be on top of the game here, because the gotchas are all over the place.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you very much, Chad. I think we're going to stop this video here. Kind of went through the tech part of it. For those of you that are watching, if you found this video valuable, would love it if you'd smash the like button, hit the bell for notifications, and leave a comment below on what you thought was interesting about this. If you have any questions for Chad, you can feel free to leave them in the comments we'll make sure in the comments below, we'll make sure to get those answered for you. And stay tuned. The next one that we're going to show, I'll have some more details around like what's the ROI difference, and what are some of the low-hanging fruit that you can pick up from a return on your investment perspective if you're acquiring a business, or if you're running a business right now and you're not aware of some very key issues that we'll discuss, like reprocessing orders. We'll talk a little bit about transaction speeds. We'll also talk about payment routing, and we'll get into some nuts and bolts on some of those things that are kind of technologically derived. But they mean some big bucks, and so we can share how you can earn a little bit extra money than maybe you were doing before by using some technology. Doesn't cost you anything extra. Doesn't cost you any more marketing. It's just found money. So again, stay tuned. Thanks for watching, everybody, and thank you, Chad.
Thank you, Nate.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe and tell me what you thought about it in the comments. Your comments encourage me to continue posting videos, and they give me ideas about what to post next. I read and reply to every single one. Also, if you own an online business and you're curious of how much it's worth, click the link below to get a free business valuation with a member of our team.